Lore of the Old World, Forces of Fantasy, Chapter 6, The High Elf Realms. There are few sights more glorious than an army of High Elves. Serried ranks of pristine soldiers take to the field alongside proud knights, potent mages, and ancient creatures of legend. The High Elves are an elite force who, warrior for warrior, can outmatch almost any other race in the Warhammer world. Over the long millennia of their existence, they have mastered every style of fighting. Whether you seek phalanxes of spears, unstoppable cavalry, deadly archers, or peerless charioteers, you will find them here. The history of the High Elves of Ulthuan is the history of the world. They were once the masters of the mortal realm, and their actions have shaped the fates of many lands. Alas, the High Elves are now passing into twilight, their works and deeds fading alongside them. The empire of the Phoenix King, which once ruled entire continents, is now confined to the kingdoms of Ulthuan and scattered colonies overseas. Alabaster cities that once bustled with vibrancy are now naught but empty echoes of a bygone age, and lands that knew nothing but beauty and nobility now reek with the blood and fury of unremitting war. The time of the High Elves has all but passed, yet such is their pride that they fight on nonetheless. If oblivion is indeed to be their fate, they have chosen to face it with arrow nocked and sword held high, defending the world they love to the last. Many thousands of years ago the High Elves of the kingdoms of Ulthuan, who call themselves the Asur, sailed across the great ocean to the Old World far to the east of their island continent. There they discovered the dwarfs and the fathers of men, and built cities along the coasts for their ships to harbour. In those days the swift ships of the elves were busy indeed, carrying dwarf gold and precious stones back to Ulthuan, returning with rare woods, silk, and exotic wares from the far west. Whilst dwarfs burrowed and mined beneath the mountains, the elves raised tall towers amongst the forests, and both races prospered. The state of harmony did not last, as perhaps was inevitable, given the very different natures of the two races. For whilst dwarfs are quiet, serious, hard-working and materialistic, with little time for frivolity, the elves are an expressive race, quick to laughter and song, but proud and haughty in their dealings with others. The war between the dwarfs and the elves lasted for many years, and caused unending bitterness between the two races. Eventually the elves abandoned their great cities in the Old World, retreating to the coast and sailing back to their own realms in the far west. Today the High Elves have no permanent settlements of their own upon the mainland of the Old World, keeping instead to their islands off the coast, where their fortified harbours keep close watch over the maritime fleets of other nations. Yet many trading ships still ply the seas between Ulthuan and the great trading ports of the Old World, and many merchants and ambassadors from Ulthuan keep splendid mansions within coastal human cities. Marienburg in particular has a substantial elven quarter inhabited by merchants and adventurers. Elves and men trade and prosper, and on the whole relations between the two races are good. Indeed, when the need is great, elven armies will sail to the lands of men to support their struggle against the many evils that beset the world. So do the white-garbed hosts of Ulthuan march to war, their banners streaming in the wind, their ranks advancing across the plains with their scaled armour glittering like diamonds in the sun. Every warrior reconciled to death in service of a greater cause. Although elves are not wantonly aggressive, the people of Ulthuan are haughty, and their lords are proud of their status. Wars between the kingdoms are often swift and bloody, for elves are determined and mighty warriors. Since the days of Anarion, the first Phoenix King, the elven armies have waged war in the interests of protecting both Ulthuan and the wider world from evil. Due to the constant struggle Ulthuan has endured for survival in the face of destructive orcs and goblins, twisted chaos hordes, conquering legions of undead, vengeful dwarfs, and even their own treacherous kin, all High Elves must learn the art of war. Thus, from an early age, all High Elves become accomplished warriors with spears, swords, and bows through service in the militia. Those of noble birth learn to ride with exceptional skill, and they are taught to bear the arms of the silver helms, as the High Elven Knights are named. With tall lances, glittering armour, high-browed helmets, and long plumes, the silver helms are the proudest and most deadly amongst their own kingdoms. Other elves fight in tight phalanxes, armed with glittering spears protecting the ranks of deadly archers that form the rest of the army's core. The kingdoms of the outer coast of Ulthuan are more used to battle, for they are exposed to the raids of hateful outcasts and fierce Norsemen. From here hail the Shadow Warriors, magnificent scouts whose hearts have become deadened to the horrors of war through centuries of bitter fighting. The great mists of Yvresse and swift ships from the kingdom of Kothic protect the eastern approaches, and elven fleets patrol the wide oceans. To the north the dour elves of Chrace, foremost amongst them being the fierce white lions, who act as the bodyguard to the Phoenix King, and the vengeful chariot-riding folk of Tiranoc guard the approaches from the Shadowlands. From the lands of Caledor come the dragon princes, who once rode to battle atop the backs of mighty drakes. Now the dragons rarely wake from their slumber, and the dragon princes wage war from armoured elven steeds. Though their power is much diminished from the time when the elves were at their height, they are still a match for even the toughest foes. The swift Reaver Knights of Illyrion are mounted archers and expert horsemen. They ride ahead of the elven host to spy out the land and locate the foe. In battle their fast steeds gallop around the flanks of the enemy, where the Reavers sow confusion and disorder. Just as accomplished are the silent Phoenix Guard, guardians of the sacred flame of the god Assyrian. The Phoenix Guard are the fearsome foes, matching their skill with their halberds with an eerie silence that can unman even the most seasoned veteran. Ulthuan is an intrinsically magical land, and the High Elves have developed arts of wizardry far beyond the accomplishments of others. The very winds of magic have been harnessed to protect the land of Ulthuan itself, and without the conjuration of the elves the entire continent would sink beneath the waves forever. In Hoeth, the slender pillar of the White Tower rises high into the azure skies. Here the greatest mages of the elves hone their magical arts. The high elven mages are mighty and versatile spellcasters, whose fiery blasts and protective enchantments have won many battles for the Phoenix King and his generals. Protecting Hoeth from attack are the Swordmasters. Having dedicated their lives to mastering the skill of their long blades, they are swift and deadly beyond compare. Very few foes have opposed the Swordmasters in battle, and survived to warn of their unsurpassed skill. The noble families of Ulthuan have led the High Elves through times of peace and conflict for thousands of years. They pride themselves on their deep sense of honour and mastery of the arts of diplomacy and war, taught to them from a young age. In times of conflict they demonstrate this prowess through their flexibility, perfectly capable of fighting blade to blade in the press of combat, or commanding vast armies from a distance. Yet the High Elf nobility delights in intrigue and politics as well, so much so that armies have sometimes been trusted to individuals based on political alignment rather than ability. Fortunately, these instances are rare, for there is no shortage of brave and talented commanders among the Aesir. By lineage and inclination, the High Elves are a magical race. They are fascinated by the secrets of sorcery, and their mages' nimble minds can embrace a deeper understanding of its subtleties and whims than other wizards. It is well that this is so, for without the magics of the High Elf mages, Ulthuan would have long slipped beneath the waves, or been overwhelmed by the black sorceries of its enemies. Indeed, not only Ulthuan, but the entire world owes much to the disciplined and selfless actions of High Elf mages, for it is by their efforts alone that the great vortex and the network of waystones that feed it are maintained, and the dread power of chaos is kept in abeyance. Into every generation of the Caledorian nobility, a handful of dragon mages are born. Elves who have a sensitivity not only to magic, but also to the minds of slumbering dragons. Many nascent dragon mages only recognize their destiny when their sleep becomes haunted by dreams of fire and blood, in which they ride dragons the colour of the setting sun. When able, the dragon mage journeys to the sulphur-clogged caverns below the mountains of Caledor, there to awake a slumbering sun dragon. This is a process that normally takes months or even years, yet a dragon mage can fully awaken a dragon with but a whisper of its name. Thus begins a bond that lasts until either mage or dragon is slain in Ulthuan's defence. Handmaidens are not the mere courtiers that their name might suggest, but warrior guards sworn to live and die in the service of their mistress. They are paragons of elven kind, as peerless in artistic pursuits as they are in the bloody business of battle. Tradition dictates that the handmaidens always number 100 warrior maids, but seldom are more than a handful seen at any one time. They normally serve as heralds and messengers for their Everqueen, acting as her eyes and ears outside Avalon. Should a handmaiden grace a battlefield with her presence, she is treated with reverence by the High Elves, who fight at her side, for the presence of a handmaiden is a clear sign of the Everqueen's favour and a portent of ultimate victory. The Elves of Ulthuan breed splendid warhorses, fast and agile creatures, yet strong of heart and limb. These steeds are capable of carrying their riders over vast distances without tiring, and are courageous enough to lead the charge without wavering. The schooling of an elven warhorse takes many years, and is done with great patience and kindness. The knights and cavalrymen of Ulthuan know that to rush the training of a steed for war is foolish, for the horse must have absolute faith in its rider, and the rider must be able to trust their mount implicitly. Rushing such schooling, or turning to the stick should the beast waver, only produces skittish and fearful steeds. Long ago the Phoenix King, Morvail, introduced a levy system. Through this he assured that all elves would be called upon to form a militia and fight in defence of their homeland, and laid the foundations upon which all elven armies would come to be built, even to this day. So effective is this system that countless battles have been won by the longbows and spears of Ulthuan's militia alone. When a levied elf begins their martial training, they first learn the arts of swordsmanship and archery. Only once they had mastered both blade and bow are they inducted into the ranks of an archer regiment. After a decade or so of service, those that prove worthy are called to join the serried ranks of a spear regiment. When the armies of Ulthuan go to war, the Sea Guard plays a crucial part, crewing the warships and acting as the vanguard for the oncoming host. These elite marine regiments fight as effectively on land as at sea, and are equally resolute when defending the shores of Lothan as they are when battling on the deck of a ship. These dangerous duties require the Sea Guard to maintain a flexible armoury. The vast majority are well trained in the use of spear, shield and bow, the better to combine the finest aspects of Ulthuan's spear and archer regiments of militia. Indeed, it is a point of pride in Lothan that the discipline of their warriors far surpasses that of any found elsewhere in Ulthuan. The White Lions have served the Phoenix King since the time of Calidor I. Whilst hunting in Crace, Calidor received the news that he was to be the next Phoenix King. He immediately set out to the shrine of Asuran, but he was waylaid by assassins. He would surely have died, but for the intervention of a party of Cracian woodsmen who swept out of the forest to defend him. Once crowned, Calidor's first act was to form the Cracians into an official bodyguard base in Lothan. A warrior can only join the ranks of the White Lions after displaying considerable valour and skill upon the battlefield. They must then also complete the traditional rite of the Cracian warrior, to hunt and kill a white lion. The Swordmasters are the exemplars of the martial arts, capable of incredible feats of arms. At the White Tower of Hoeth, the greatest seat of learning in the world, these warrior scholars train arduously, mastering every nuance and facet of sword fighting. Each swordmaster has studied warfare and personal combat for decades, often centuries, developing an expertise so complete that there is no group of warriors that can match them. In battle, the swordmasters are deadly opponents, for only in battle can they truly unleash all of their ability. They fight with great sweeps of their blades, the air itself humming as the swordmaster weaves a web of death that only the very best fighters in the world could hope to survive. The Phoenix Guards are the guardians of the Shrine of Asuran, the great pyramid temple in the Sea of Dreams. Deep within lies the Chamber of Days, upon the walls of which it is said are the histories of past, present, and future, etched in the words of fire. Legend tells that any who behold that wall shall forever be cursed with the knowledge of their own death. The Phoenix Guard are a silent order, forbidden from uttering a single word lest they tell of the secrets of time revealed to them. In battle they are grim and resolute, clad in ornate armour and armed with tall halberds, their stony quiet and the aura of godly might that surrounds them striking fear into the hearts of the foe. When Nagaraith was riven by civil war, most of the elves there sided with the traitor Melarion, but a small number remained faithful to the Phoenix King, and swore to fight their treacherous kin. These ill-fated elves became the Shadow Warriors, the darkest, most sinister and brutal of all the High Elves. From carefully concealed hiding places deep within the Shadowlands, these loyal Nagarythe fought a long and blood-soaked war against the traitors. Ambush and deception were their tools, and the battles they fought were short and decisive. Quarter was neither asked nor offered, and the Shadow Warriors earned a gruesome and fearful reputation that would last throughout the ages, for their willingness to commit acts deemed barbarous by other High Elves. There are regions of Avalorn that are forbidden to enter. Some are sacred places of power, others are dark and dangerous, places from which the touch of chaos has never truly faded. It is the duty of the Sisters of Avalon to guard such places, ensuring that the sacred lands remain sacrosanct. The Sisters of Avalon are keen-eyed archers who prefer to fight their battles at range, yet they shrink not from the swirling melee of combat, for no battlefield peril can overcome one who walks the dark paths of Avalon. Before charging knights or rampaging trolls, the warrior maids stand their ground. With precise aim and steady hearts, they loose arrows until the foe is full upon them, then draw their swords and step into the fray. Elarian Reavers are the descendants of generations of expert cavalry from Elarion, a land renowned for the quality of the horses it breeds and skilled riders it produces. They are lightly armed cavalrymen, experts at scouting who act as eyes and ears for the armies of Ulthuan. When the armies of Ulthuan march to war, the Reavers range many miles ahead, seeking enemy troops, places of ambush, and advantageous sites where the marching army can camp, or where battle lines can be formed to meet the enemy. Once battle is joined, the Reavers ride swiftly to outflank the enemy lines, skirmishing with the outriders and scouts of the foe, and sowing confusion amongst the ranks before charging into the disrupted flanks. Of all the High Elf knights, it is the Silver Helms who are seen as the perfect exemplars of martial grace and valour to which young elves should aspire. They are recruited purely from families of noble blood, young warriors raised to be proud without being haughty, and brave without being undisciplined. The Silverhelms are willing to throw themselves into the most dangerous of battles. They do so in the understanding that glory awaits those who prevail, and they are confident enough in their prowess as warriors to believe they can succeed, no matter the odds. For these young nobles there can be no hesitation in facing any foe. It is those victories that are hardest won which bring about the sweetest glories and earn the grandest renown. The nobles of Caledor who once rode dragons regard themselves as the elite even amongst the nobility of Ulthuan's kingdoms. Only in the thick of battle does a dragon prince's true character emerge. Hauteur gives way to determination, arrogance to courage. Gone is the aloof noble who disdains the company of anyone not considered an equal. In its place rides a warrior who would die without hesitation if such a sacrifice would save but one of Ulthuan's people. Only when the battle light fades from the dragon prince's eyes does the aspect of the Caledorian noble slide back into place. Callous pride returns, leaving those who saw the selfless hero behind the mask to question if they ever truly saw it at all. In battle, Tiranoc charioteers weave between enemy units at full speed, raining arrows onto unprotected flanks and raking enemy lines with steel-tipped spears. Only when the enemy is sufficiently weakened do the Tiranoc charioteers crash into the press of melee in a glorious massed charge, the steeds biting and kicking, the riders thrusting spears into the hearts of their foes. The white-timbered chariots of Crace, drawn by pairs of snarling white lions, charge headlong into the fray. As the war lions tear into the foe with fang and claw, the crew cleave heads from shoulders with every axe blow. Such daring charges have become the hallmark of the lion chariots, earning them a well-deserved reputation as the bane of even the most determined shield wall. When the swift hawk ships of Lothian slip their moorings, they are accompanied to the open sea by skycutters, sleek, airborne chariots that rest upon a cushion of magic and are drawn into battle by the swift-feather rocks that nest along the glittering coast. These serve as the eyes and ears of Lothian's fleets, allowing them to plan engagements long before the enemy is even aware of their presence. Skycutters also serve as the outriders of Lothian's armies, for they can go where the grounded kin cannot. Should a skycutter's crew encounter a foe, their goal is to clear the skies with steel shot fired from their compact eagle-eye bolt throws, ensuring that Lothan will dominate the heavens in the battle to come. The griffins of the Anuli Mountains are creatures of noble bearing and keen intelligence. Such is a griffin's wild appearance that a stranger to Ulthuan might deem it merely another savage beast of the mountains. Yet all elves know that griffins are seldom given to cruelty, at least so long as no harm is offered to those they think of as kin. For an elf to have any hope in mastering a griffin, the beast must be captured and trained while still young, forging a bond that only death can shatter. Griffins are particularly favoured by those who fight in the thick of the fray, and many a battle has been won by the descent of a shrieking griffin into the heart of the enemy army. On Ulthuan, dragons are not the subject of the terrifying folk tales told by the superstitious savages of the Old World. They are considered bold and noble creatures. Indeed, without the dragons of Ulthuan, the High Elves would have been annihilated thousands of years ago, for the dragons are the elves' oldest and greatest allies. Within Ulthuan, the realm of Caledor is the home of the dragons, and in ancient days those noble beasts seemed almost without number. However, times have changed. Now, in colossal caverns found deep within the Dragon-Spine Mountains, the dragons sleep away the centuries. A mysterious languor that began in the earliest years of Tethless reign has caused more and more dragons to enter a slumber from which only ancient Caledorian songs can rouse them. The phoenixes of Ulthuan dwell among the flame spires, great alabaster pillars of rock that stand sentinel above the shrine of Assyrian, and around which the winds of magic blow a constant gale. Over generations, the phoenixes of the flame spires have become attuned to these winds, harnessing them at a whim. Flame spire phoenixes lacked the gift of a civilized tongue. However, they understand the elven tongue well enough, and, if treated with proper respect, can be bargained with. Indeed, an accord exists between them and the Phoenix Guard, with the latter often calling upon the birds to serve as war mounts. This is a truly fearsome combination, the clear-headed judgment of the Phoenix Knight directing the flame spire's fires to where they can cause the most damage. As a flame spire phoenix ages, its body cools until finally the plumage that once blazed with fire grows heavy with frost and ice. Once this occurs, the phoenix must leave the flame spires, for the chill that surrounds it causes pain to its brightly burning kin. Most Frostheart phoenixes end their days in lonely exile on the crags of the Etuine coast. Others return to the shrine of Assyrian to offer their final days in service as war steeds. Whilst a Frostheart phoenix may not possess the vigour and fire of its youth, it is a much hardier mount. Without the power to resurrect itself, a Frostheart phoenix fights all the harder, determined to end its existence striking a final blow against the enemies of Ulthuan. The great eagles of Ulthuan have always been firm allies of the elves. The histories tell that the two races fought in one another's cause since the time of the great cataclysm and during the war against chaos, but legend carries the friendship deeper into the past. Indeed, in some tales it was Talin, king of the eagles, who bore Erith Karl away to the underworld at Assyrian's command. Like the High Elves, great eagles are haughty creatures who long remember insults and do not suffer foolish company gladly. When High Elf armies assemble, the noble eagles too join the battle. They swoop down upon the crew of enemy war machines, tearing them apart with powerful talons, before using mighty wings to glide swiftly away. The Elves of Ulthuan have never developed the unreliable gunpowder technology or crude stone throwers favoured by other races of the Old World. Instead, the Asur rely on a more elegant weapon, the eagle claw bolt thrower. These weapons bristle from the sides of Ulthuan's warships and the battlements of her fortresses. Its clever design allows its crews to alternate between different modes of fire, one moment shooting single shots capable of disemboweling a rampaging giant, the next unleashing clutches of smaller bolts to mow down massed infantry before they reach the High Elf lines. Such is the skill of its Seaguard crew, and the speed with which they reload, that only seconds separate one deadly volley from the next. Within the shrine of Vol, priests forge weapons of great power and devices of infinite cunning for the lords and ladies of Ulthuan. The members of this strange priesthood are all blind, having ritually put out their own eyes upon entering the service of their god. Through this act of self-mutilation they sacrifice their earthly sight, but they gain something far more valuable. They are bestowed with the skill and shrewdness of their patron deity, and the understanding of the sorrow and suffering that Vol has undergone to protect the elves. This knowledge and wisdom enables them to harness the fickle winds of magic, and use them to create weapons of incredible potency for the High Elves who fight the wars to protect Ulthuan. Cain is the elf god of war, murder, hatred, and destruction. He is the destroying god, who represents to the elves the fact that in order for there to be life, there must also be death. In order to have peace, there must also be war. In order to have happiness, there must be suffering. The High Elves seek Cain's blessings only rarely. His bloodlust is there to be invoked when danger threatens, but it must be controlled and used wisely. The nobles of Nagarath in particular are wary of the lure of Cain's glories, and know the seductive call of the bloody-handed god better than any. They live in the twilight of Cain's immortal shadow, forever reaching towards the light.